7 Apache girls left hanged to dying. Until the rancher shows up, the sun hung low over the Arizona Canyon, painting the rocky cliffs with shades of orange and gold.
In the distance, the wind whispered through the tall grasses, and the dry, dusty ground crackled under the hooves of a lone horse. The canyon was a place of beauty, but also of danger. It had witnessed many hardships over the years, and today it would witness another. 7 young Apache girls moved quietly through the narrow paths that twisted between the canyon's cliffs. Their feet made little sound on the hard earth, and their eyes scanned the horizon constantly. They had grown up knowing that danger could come from anywhere, especially from the settlers who were moving closer and closer to their lands. Breaths. They were sisters, friends, and cousins, bound together by family and by the traditions of their people. Their laughter had once filled the canyon with joy, but now it was replaced with fear. The eldest of the girls, Naomi, was just 17. She carried herself with a quiet strength, and the others often looked to her for guidance. Malia, 15, was nimble and quick, always ready to explore the small streams and hidden caves, though today her usual curiosity was replaced by caution. Sahara, 13, had a gentle heart and was often the peacemaker when disagreements arose. The youngest, little Kiona, only 9, clung to Naomi's hand, her wide eyes reflecting the seriousness of the moment. The remaining 3, Island, Taya, and Shai, each had their own strengths and personalities, but all shared the same unspoken understanding. They had to survive. That morning their world had changed. A group of settlers had arrived at the edge of the canyon claiming that some of their livestock had gone missing. They did not ask questions. They did not search carefully. Their fear and suspicion of the Apache people had grown too strong. The settlers accused the girls of wrongdoing, even though the girls had done nothing. Words were exchanged, voices were raised, and the situation turned dangerous in a heartbeat. The girls tried to run, moving swiftly along hidden trails known only to their families. But the settlers were faster than they had expected. Horses thundering behind them, the girls found themselves trapped near the canyon rim. There was no escape. The settlers surrounded them, shouting orders and threats. The girls froze, their hearts pounding like wild drums in their chests. The leader of the settlers, a man named Jed Carter, stepped forward. He was tall and imposing, with a harsh voice that carried over the canyon. "You girls are coming with us," he said, his words sharp and cold. "You know what you've done. You're not going anywhere until we sort this out." Naomi shook her head, trying to explain that they had done nothing wrong, but the settlers did not listen. A fear gripped the girls like a heavy blanket, suffocating them with its weight. They were outnumbered and they knew it. The canyon, once a place of safety and adventure, had become a trap. The settlers tied the girls' hands and forced them to the edge of a small clearing near the cliffs. Breath. The wind picked up, carrying dust and leaves through the air, and the girls' hair whipped around their faces. Their bodies trembled, not just from fear but from the harshness of the world they had been thrown into. Naomi tried to calm the others, whispering softly, "Stay together. Don't give up. We'll find a way." But even her words felt fragile in the face of the danger around them. The girls could see the determination in the settlers' eyes, and it was clear that they had no intention of letting the girls go easily. Hours passed, or maybe it was only minutes. Time seemed to stretch and warp in the canyon that day. The girls were forced to stand in one place, their hands tied above their heads, their breaths coming in short, sharp gasps. The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows over the rocky terrain. The wind howled through the canyon, but it could not wash away the fear that clung to their hearts. Little Kiona whimpered quietly, the sound almost lost in the wind. Pain. Naomi knelt beside her, brushing the hair from her face and whispering, "It's okay, little one. We'll be all right. We have each other." But even as she spoke, Naomi felt a cold weight in her chest. The situation was worse than anything she had imagined. The girls' minds raced with questions and memories. They remembered the stories their elders had told them. Stories of resilience, stories of surviving the impossible. They clung to those memories now, trying to draw strength from them. Each girl thought of her family, of the life waiting for them beyond the canyon. The thought of leaving that life behind was unbearable.
Meanwhile, in another part of the canyon, a lone rider approached. Samuel Hayes, a rancher who lived on the outskirts of the valley, had been checking on his cattle.
Despot. He was a man who understood the land and the people who lived on it. He had spent years learning the ways of the Apache, respecting their knowledge and their traditions. When he saw the dust clouds rising in the distance, his instincts told him something was wrong. Samuel guided his horse along the rocky trails, moving swiftly but carefully. As he drew closer, he heard the faint, almost imperceptible sounds of voices. Frightened, pleading voices. His heart tightened. He knew immediately that these were not the sounds of adults arguing, but of children in danger. The sight that met him at the clearing made him stop in his tracks. 7 young girls, barely able to stand, were tied near the edge of the cliff. Their eyes were wide with terror, their bodies trembling. The settlers' faces were set in hard lines, their voices filled with anger and fear. Samuel's blood ran cold. He had seen injustice before, but nothing had prepared him for this. Without hesitation, Samuel guided his horse closer, careful to make his presence known without startling anyone. "Stop!" he called out, his voice firm and commanding. The settlers turned, surprised to see a stranger approaching. Frowned, his eyes never leaving the girls.
"What's going on here?" he demanded.
"Why are these children being treated like this?" Jed Carter stepped forward, his chest puffed out. "They've stolen from us," he said, his voice harsh. "They need to pay for what they've done." "They've done nothing wrong," Samuel said, his tone unwavering. "You cannot treat them like this. Untie them, or there will be consequences." The settlers hesitated, glancing at each other. Samuel's reputation had grown over the years. He was known as a fair man, one who respected both the settlers and the Apache. His words carried weight, and for a moment the settlers faltered. Naomi's heart lifted slightly when she saw the man step forward. There was a glimmer of hope, fragile but real. She whispered to the others, "Maybe help has come." "Stay strong. Any girl believes collars ping. Any other stars inside by grave. Babies still 5. Turn to young people or stay strong. We will get you out of here." He carefully began to untie the ropes, his hands steady and precise. The girls' relief was almost overwhelming, but they did not yet dare to hope fully. They had learned that danger could return at any moment. As Samuel worked to free them, the canyon seemed to hold its breath. The wind softened, and the harshness of the day felt momentarily suspended. Each rope he cut, each knot he loosened, was a small victory against the fear that had gripped the girls. By the time all 7 were untied, their bodies were weak, their faces pale, but their spirits had begun to lift. They huddled together, leaning on Samuel for support. He glances around in despair. Naomi looked up at him, her eyes filled with gratitude and relief. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. Samuel nodded, his expression serious but kind. "You are brave," he said, "but you've held on through something terrible. Now we'll make sure you're safe."
As he helped the girls to their feet, Samuel knew that this was only the beginning.
The canyon had tested them, and it would not easily forget what had happened here. But for the moment, the girls were alive, and that was all that mattered. Together, they began the slow journey back toward safety, each step a reminder of the courage and resilience that had carried them through the darkest hours.
Even as the sun began to set, casting the canyon in deep shadows, there was a sense of hope.
Stopping. The wind continued to whisper through the rocks, but now it carried a new message. One of survival, of protection, and of the unexpected kindness of a stranger who had stepped in when it was needed most. In that quiet canyon where fear had once ruled, a small spark of hope had been lit. And though the journey ahead would be long, the girls would face it together, guided by courage, love, and the presence of someone who believed in their worth. The canyon grew quieter as Samuel led the 7 girls along the narrow paths that wound between the cliffs and dry riverbeds. The sun was high now, glaring down and casting harsh shadows over the rocks. Each step was careful. Loose stones threatened to send them tumbling if they were not alert. The girls leaned on Samuel for support, their small hands clutching his, as though his presence could shield them from the world. Even though they were now free from the ropes, fear still clung to them like a heavy coat. Their bodies ached from standing tied for so long, and their muscles trembled from exhaustion. Little Kiona lagged slightly behind, her tiny feet dragging in the dirt, and Naomi constantly looked back, worried that any moment the danger might return. "Stay close," Samuel instructed gently but firmly. "We have a long way to go, but I know a safe place nearby." Each sound, the rustle of the wind, a distant bird, the snap of a branch, made their hearts jump. Samuel understood. He had lived among both settlers and Apache people long enough to know the weight of fear. It was not easy to leave behind, and it did not disappear immediately. As they moved deeper into the canyon, the memory of the settlers' harsh faces and angry voices haunted the girls. They whispered among themselves, sharing the small details of the ordeal, each story filled with fear and disbelief. Island spoke first, her voice shaking. I can't believe they tried to tie us like that. I thought we were going to die."
Briss. Benjamin backed up and his step said,
Malia's eyes were wide as she replied, "I thought so too. Every moment I thought, this is it. This is the end."
Sahara leaned closer to Naomi, her voice barely audible. "I was so scared. I kept thinking about Mama and Papa."
I didn't want them to lose us. Naomi squeezed her hand, forcing a small, reassuring smile.
Breaths. "We are still here. We are alive. And we will get back to them. I promise." Samuel listened quietly, allowing them to speak and release some of the tension that had built up in their chests. He knew that words could be as healing as food or water when someone had been terrified. He also knew that they would need both. "Soon," he said, "we need to move carefully, but we will stop soon to rest."
You can drink, eat, and catch your strength. The girls nodded again, their steps slightly steadier.
As they walked, Samuel scanned the cliffs and the dry riverbeds, his experienced eyes looking for anything unusual. Loose rocks, hidden dangers, or signs of anyone following them. The canyon was full of surprises, and he had learned to expect them. Preparation. Hours passed. The heat of the afternoon sun pressed down on them, making the rocky path even more challenging. The girls were quiet now, each lost in their own thoughts. Little Kiona occasionally looked up at Samuel, her eyes still full of fear but also a flicker of trust. But she had been clinging to Naomi and the others for so long that it was strange to feel someone else's protection. Finally, Samuel found a small, shaded area beside a trickling stream. It was hidden among rocks and low shrubs, a place he often used when he needed to rest during his rides. The girls sank to the ground, relief evident on their faces. Naomi immediately knelt beside little Kiona, letting her drink from the cool water. Malia and Sahara leaned against each other, while Eileen, Taya, and Shay slowly sank onto the soft dirt. Brace. Samuel pulled some cloth and water from his pack, helping the girls clean the dirt and dust from their faces and hands. Drink slowly, he advised. You need strength for the next part of our journey. As they drank, the girls began to relax, at least a little. Their breathing slowed, and the tension in their shoulders eased. Breath. Naomi took a deep breath herself, realizing that for the first time since the settlers had captured them, they were safe, at least for now. Even in the quiet of the shaded area, the canyon seemed to hold a subtle tension. Samuel knew it was not over. The settlers could come back at any time, and the girls had no way to defend themselves. He kept his eyes sharp, listening for distant sounds, always aware of the canyon's echoes. We need to keep moving soon, he said softly. We cannot stay in one place too long. But before that, you need to rest and regain your strength. Can you manage a little food? Naomi nodded. Yes, we can. Thank you, sir. Samuel handed out small bundles of dried meat and bread he had brought with him. The girls ate cautiously, still unsure if this safety was real or temporary. Breaths. Their bodies were hungry, their stomachs reminding them of the long morning they had endured without proper food. Yet even in their exhaustion, their minds remained alert, scanning the shadows for any sign of danger. As they ate, the canyon seemed to whisper reminders of the world outside their small group. Birds called in the distance, and a light breeze carried the scent of sage and dry earth. But Samuel encouraged the girls to listen, to remember that the world held beauty as well as danger. He told them stories of the canyon, of hidden paths, of streams where the water was always cool. Earth. Slowly, the girls' laughter began to return, tentative at first, then a little stronger. Hours passed, and the sun began to tilt toward the horizon. Samuel knew they could not stay long. He helped the girls stand, supporting them as they adjusted to their tired muscles. We must move now, he said. I know a place where you'll be safe for the night. It's not far, and it's hidden from anyone who might be looking for us. The girls trusted him. They had no choice but to follow. Their steps were slow but steady, each girl drawing strength from the others. Naomi stayed near little Kiona, whispering encouragement. Malia and Sahara walked together, holding hands briefly when a loose stone threatened to trip them. Aylin, Taya, and Shay walked behind, alert to every sound. As they moved, Samuel told them to be quiet and careful. He explained how the canyon echoed sounds far more than they might expect, and a single misstep or shout could give away their location. The girls obeyed, their fear now mixed with determination. They had survived once. They would survive again. The canyon stretched on, with narrow paths and jagged cliffs. Samuel led the way, using every bit of his experience to navigate safely. Occasionally he glanced back to ensure the girls were still close. Their trust in him was evident, but he knew it had to be earned through action, not words. Night began to fall, and the canyon transformed. Breath. Shadows grew long and deep, and the wind carried a chill that made the girls shiver. Samuel had prepared for this. He led them to a small cave hidden behind a thick curtain of shrubs. Inside, it was dark but dry, sheltered from the wind and the eyes of anyone passing by. The girls stepped inside cautiously, their eyes adjusting to the dim light. Naomi held little Kiona close, while the others found spots where they could sit and rest. Samuel lit a small lantern, its soft glow illuminating the cave walls. The girls breathed a collective sigh of relief. Barask. For now, they were safe. You've done well, he said softly. I know this day has been very hard, but you have stayed brave. That is something no one can take from you. The girls looked at him, their eyes filled with a mix of exhaustion and gratitude. Naomi whispered, "Thank you for finding us, for helping us.
Samuel nodded, his expression serious.
You are strong. You survived something terrible. But we must be careful. Tomorrow we will begin the journey back to your families. You will be safe again, I promise." As the girls settled in the cave, their minds slowly began to release the tension that had held them tight all day. Inspiration. Sleep came slowly at first, but it did come. The canyon outside was dark and quiet, and for the first time, they felt a glimmer of hope. Round, Samuel stayed awake longer, keeping watch at the cave entrance. He thought about the settlers, about the dangers the girls had faced, and about the families waiting for them. He knew that their ordeal was not over. There would be challenges ahead, and the journey back would require courage, patience, and trust. But for now, he allowed himself a small measure of relief. The girls were alive, unharmed for the moment, and they had each other. That was the most important thing! Outside the cave, the wind whispered through the canyon, carrying with it a sense of quiet promise. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight they were safe. They had survived the worst of the day, and that survival had strengthened them. In the dim glow of the lantern, the 7 Apache girls huddled together, their hearts still racing, but their spirits beginning to recover. And Samuel, the lone rancher who had intervened at just the right moment, kept watch, ready to protect them until the dawn. For the first time that day, the canyon felt less like a place of danger and more like a place of hope. The first light of dawn broke over the canyon, painting the rocks in soft shades of pink and gold. The air was cool and the wind carried the faint scent of sage and dry earth. Inside the cave, the 7 Apache girls stirred, rubbing their eyes and stretching stiff limbs. Sleep had been fitful, filled with dreams of running, fear, and shadows. Yet, for the first time in hours, they felt safe. Samuel was already awake, kneeling near the entrance, scanning the horizon. The canyon was quiet now, but he knew better than to trust the silence. Breaths. Danger could appear at any moment, and the settlers who had captured the girls yesterday were likely still nearby, angry and determined. He looked back at the girls who were waking one by one. Breath. Naomi gently nudged little Kiona awake, whispering reassurances. "Good morning," Samuel said softly. Breaths. "We need to move soon. There's a place nearby where you will be completely safe. But we have to be careful. We cannot let anyone see us until we are out of the canyon." The girls nodded, still tired but resolute.
They had survived one terrifying day. They were not going to be trapped again.
Breath. Samuel handed them small bundles of food and water. "Eat quickly," he said. "We will need all our strength."
As they moved out of the cave and back onto the narrow canyon paths, Samuel kept the girls close. Naomi held little Kiona's hand tightly, while the others followed in a single line, their eyes constantly scanning the rocky cliffs.
Samuel's horse moved slowly behind them, ready to carry anyone who could not keep up.
Hours passed in tense silence.
The girls were aware that the settlers could be watching, waiting, or even tracking them. Every bird call, every rustle of the wind, made them flinch. Breaths gave them courage. He walked confidently, speaking only when necessary, guiding them through the safest paths, avoiding open areas and hidden traps. By mid-morning, the canyon opened into a small clearing. Samuel motioned for the girls to stop. "We're close," he whispered. "There is a ranch not far from here.
The owners know me and they will help us. From there, you can contact your families safely."
The girls exchanged cautious glances. Relief was almost overwhelming, but they dared not celebrate yet. Break. They had been tricked before, and the fear lingered. Samuel could sense their hesitation.
I know you are tired, he said, but you have been very brave. One more step and you will be safe.
As they approached the edge of the clearing, the sound of hooves suddenly echoed through the rocks. The girls froze, fear gripping their hearts once again. A group of settlers appeared, riding fast toward them, the same men who had captured them the day before. Their angry faces were set, their voices shouting over the wind. Samuel stepped forward, placing himself between the girls and the settlers. "Stop!" he commanded, his voice carrying through the canyon. The settlers faltered slightly, surprised to see him. Jed Carter, the leader, spurred his horse closer, his face red with anger. "You again!" he shouted. "These girls belong to us."
You cannot interfere. They belong to no one, Samuel said firmly. They are children.
"You will not harm them." The settlers hesitated. Samuel's reputation in the valley was known. He had spent years helping both settlers and Apache families, and people respected him. But respect could not erase the anger in Jed Carter's eyes. "We will do as we please!" Jed yelled. Samuel stayed calm. He knew that a fight would endanger the girls. He raised his hand slightly, signaling for patience. "Listen to me," he said. "I found that body he became payer." "You have made a mistake. These girls have done nothing wrong."
Let them go now, and no one will be harmed. If you continue, there will be consequences for you.
Breath. A tense silence fell. The canyon seemed to hold its breath. The girls clutched each other, hearts pounding, hoping Samuel's words would be enough. They had already seen the worst that day. They could not bear more fear. First, Jed looked around at his men. Some hesitated, unsure of what to do. Samuel's calm authority and the weight of his reputation gave them pause. No one wanted to challenge a man who could easily turn the situation against them. Finally, Jed yelled, "We will see about that!" and moved forward aggressively. Samuel stood firm, stepping closer to the girls, ready to protect them with his own body. Raph spoke again, his voice low but firm. "Stop. You will not harm them. I promise you. I will not move until these girls are safe." Seeing Samuel's determination, some of the settlers slowed, confused by his courage. The girls watched, their fear mixed with hope. Could this man really protect them? Could he really face all these angry adults and keep them safe? Samuel's unwavering stance gave them a small spark of courage. Then, in a moment of decision, Samuel acted. Back, he pulled a rope from his pack and tied it between two trees, creating a barrier between the settlers and the girls. "Back off!" he shouted. "You will not pass until I say it is safe."
Jed hesitated, realizing that Samuel was prepared to defend the girls. The other settlers looked at each other, uncertainty replacing some of their anger.
They had assumed the girls were helpless, but Samuel had shown them they were not. The girls clung to each other, their breaths shallow. Dusk, Samuel slowly moved them to the side, keeping them behind the rope, out of reach. "It's all right," he whispered. "Stay behind me. Trust me." "You are safe now." One by one, he led the girls carefully through the clearing, keeping the settlers at a distance with his calm authority. Brass. Each step was tense, but the girls began to feel a sense of safety returning. The canyon, which had felt like a trap, now seemed like a passage toward freedom. As they moved, Samuel spoke softly to the girls. "Soon we will be out of the canyon. You will see your families. You will be safe. Naomi whispered to the others, "We have to keep moving. He will protect us." Malia nodded, gripping Naomi's hand tightly, while little Kiona hid her face in Naomi's chest, still trembling but trusting. Finally, they reached the edge of the canyon. The land beyond opened into a gentle valley, where the rancher's home and fields were visible. Samuel led the girls across the last stretch, never letting his guard down, until they reached the safety of the ranch. The ranchers, who knew Samuel, quickly came out to help. They guided the girls inside the house, offering food, water, and blankets. The girls, exhausted and shaken, finally allowed themselves to rest. They had made it. They were safe. Samuel stayed by their side, ensuring that they were comfortable and that no harm could reach them. Ever forget that courage can carry you through the hardest moments. As the day passed, the girls slowly began to recover. Their fear began to fade, replaced by relief and gratitude. Naomi and the others shared quiet laughter, their spirits lifting with each passing hour. They were no longer trapped, no longer at the mercy of strangers. They were alive, and they had survived together. The settlers, seeing that their plan had failed, eventually turned back, unwilling to confront Samuel and the other ranchers. The canyon grew quiet once more, and for the girls, it was the first peace they had known since the previous day. That evening, as the sun set over the valley, painting the sky in gold and orange, the girls sat together in the rancher's yard. They watched the shadows grow long across the fields, feeling a sense of safety they had not felt in a long time. Samuel sat nearby, watching over them, a steady presence that gave them comfort. Naomi looked at the other girls and whispered, "We made it. We are safe. We will see our families again." Little Kiona smiled faintly, leaning against Naomi, her eyes still wide but calmer. Malia and Sahara held hands, grateful for the protection Samuel had given them. Ayla, Taya, and Shae whispered to each other, relief shining in their eyes. Samuel spoke softly, but firmly. "This day will not be forgotten. You have shown courage beyond your years. Remember it always, and remember, no matter what happens, there are people who will stand for what is right." The girls nodded, understanding that while the canyon had tested them, they had emerged stronger. The fear that had gripped them was not gone entirely, but it had been replaced with hope, courage, and the knowledge that they were not alone. As night fell, the girls finally slept peacefully, the rancher's home safe and warm around them. The canyon, which had seemed so threatening only a day before, was now a distant memory, a place of fear that had been conquered, thanks to courage, trust, and a man willing to risk everything to save them. And for Samuel, the rancher who had stepped in when it mattered most. The day was a reminder that even in a world filled with danger and cruelty, bravery and kindness could make all the difference. The morning sun rose slowly over the valley, spilling golden light across the ranch. Inside the house, the 7 Apache girls were awake, sitting together on blankets spread across the floor. They had slept deeply for the first time in many hours, feeling the comfort of warmth, safety, and the gentle presence of people who truly cared for them. Breath. Naomi stretched, rubbing her stiff arms, and looked around at the others. Little Kiona was playing quietly with a piece of cloth, her wide eyes no longer filled with fear, but with cautious curiosity. Malia and Sahara whispered to each other, giggling softly as they recounted the events of the past 2 days, now beginning to feel like a nightmare they had survived. Ayla, Taya, and Shay sat close together, their hands brushing as if holding on to each other could keep them steady in this new world of safety. Samuel entered the room with a small tray of food, his face calm but thoughtful. "Good morning," he said gently. "You've all rested well. Today, we will begin the next part of our journey. You will see your families soon, and they will be overjoyed to have you back." The girls looked at him with mixed excitement and anxiety. After the ordeal they had faced, it was hard to believe that they could truly return to the lives they had known before.
Naomi nodded, her voice steady but quiet. "We are ready."
Woo! We just need to know that nothing will hurt us on the way.
Samuel smiled softly. "I will make sure of it. You have been through enough. Today you go home safely." After a simple breakfast, the group prepared to leave the ranch. Samuel led them carefully along a hidden path that wound through the hills and small streams, away from the main roads where settlers might still be searching. The girls walked close together, holding hands or supporting one another as needed. Each step was a small victory, a reminder that they were moving forward, leaving fear behind. As they walked, Samuel spoke quietly to them about courage and resilience. "You have faced something that would scare even grown adults," he said.
But you stayed strong. That is something to be proud of.
"Remember it always. And remember that there are people who will help you, just as I have." The girls listened, their faces brightening with each word. They had never imagined that someone would care so deeply about their safety. For so long, they had felt alone, vulnerable to the harshness of the world. Samuel's presence reminded them that kindness and bravery still existed, even in the most difficult times. By midday, the group reached a wide river that ran gently through the valley. The water sparkled under the sunlight, and the sound of it flowing over rocks brought a strange sense of peace. Samuel led the girls across a small wooden bridge, careful to move slowly and ensure that everyone was steady. Naomi held little Kiona's hand tightly, guiding her across, while Malia and Sahara walked just behind.
Aylin, Taya, and Shea followed, their faces a mixture of relief and cautious optimism. On the other side of the river, Samuel motioned for the girls to stop.
"From here it is a short walk to your family's village," he said. "They have been waiting for you, and I promised them you would return safely." The girls' hearts raced.
After days of fear and uncertainty, the thought of seeing their families again filled them with hope. Yet the memory of the settlers' cruelty made them wary. Naomi whispered to the others, "We have to be careful, but soon we'll be home." As they neared the village, the sounds of daily life began to reach their ears. Children laughing, women calling to each other, the distant rhythm of someone pounding grain. The girls paused for a moment, letting the familiar sights and sounds wash over them. Breath. Their village was alive and waiting, and they were returning. When the family saw them emerging from the path, there was a moment of disbelief. Then, one by one, parents and siblings ran forward, calling their names, tears streaming down their faces. Naomi saw her mother first, who scooped her into her arms, holding her tightly as if she would never let go. Little Kiona ran into her father's embrace, sobbing quietly but with relief. Malia, Sahara, Aylin, Taya, and Shea were surrounded by their own families, each reunion filled with hugs, laughter, and tears. Samuel watched from a short distance, a gentle smile on his face. He had done what he had promised. He had brought them home, safely. Yet he knew the healing process would take time. The girls had been through trauma, and the memory of the canyon and the settlers' threats would not disappear immediately. But for now they were safe, and that was what mattered most. The village elders approached Samuel, offering thanks and respect. "You have done a great thing," one said. "These children are alive because of your courage and care." Breath. "We are forever grateful." Samuel nodded. "No one should face what they went through alone. I hope this day reminds everyone that kindness and bravery matter, even in hard times." Over the next few hours, the village came alive with celebration. Food was shared, songs were sung, and stories of the girls' bravery were told. Naomi and the others listened quietly, still processing the ordeal they had survived. But they also felt pride. They had endured fear and danger, and they had come through it together. That evening, as the sun set over the village, casting golden light across the adobe homes, the girls sat with their families around a small fire. They spoke softly about their experiences, sharing what they could, while Samuel remained nearby, listening and offering guidance when needed. Naomi looked around at the group, her heart full.
We were very lucky, she said quietly. Not everyone has someone to help them like Samuel did.
We will remember this always. Malia nodded. Bad.
And we will be stronger. We have survived something very hard, and now we know we can face the future together.
Sahara smiled faintly, reaching for little Kiana's hand. Brett, that is enough to be brave. As night fell, the village grew quiet. The girls finally settled into their homes, surrounded by family and the warmth of community. The canyon that had been the site of fear and danger was now a distant memory, replaced by the safety and love of home. Breath. Samuel, meanwhile, rode slowly back toward his ranch, thinking about the day's events. He reflected on the courage of the girls, the strength of their community, and the power of standing up for what is right. He knew that the valley would face challenges in the future, but he also knew that hope, bravery, and kindness could overcome even the darkest moments. In the days that followed, the girls began to heal further. They returned to their daily routines, learning, playing, and helping with chores, all under the watchful and loving eyes of their families. The memory of fear remained, but it was tempered by gratitude and resilience. They had faced danger, but they had survived, and that knowledge gave them confidence. The village elders spoke often about the events, emphasizing lessons of courage, community, and protection. The story of the 7 girls and the rancher who had rescued them spread quietly, becoming a reminder that in a world filled with challenges, people could still act with compassion and bravery.
For Naomi, Malia, Sahara, little Kiona, Island, Taya, and Shay, life gradually returned to normal, but the bond between them had grown stronger. They had shared an experience that no one else could fully understand, and that bond would remain with them forever.
And while the canyon would always be part of their story, a place of fear, danger, and near loss, it was also a place that reminded them of survival, courage, and the kindness of someone who had risked everything to save them. As the sun set each evening, painting the sky in warm shades of orange and pink, the girls would look at the horizon and remember. They remembered fear. But more importantly, they remembered hope. They remembered Samuel, who had appeared at the right moment to guide them to safety. They remembered the power of courage, the value of kindness, and the importance of never giving up, even when the world seemed dark. In the years that followed, the story of the 7 Apache girls and the rancher who rescued them became a quiet legend in the valley. Parents told it to their children as a lesson in bravery and compassion. The girls themselves grew into strong, confident women, carrying the memory of what they had endured and what they had overcome. Though the canyon still stood tall and silent, its cliffs and rocks whispering the wind, the girls no longer feared it. It was part of their past, yes, but it was also part of the story of their courage, their survival, and the hope that had guided them home. Bows. And Samuel Hayes, the rancher who had stepped forward when no one else would, became a symbol of what one person could do to make a difference. The girls remembered him always, not just as a rescuer, but as a reminder that bravery, compassion, and courage could change the course of lives forever.
Life in the valley continued, full of work, family, and quiet moments of joy.
Yet the memory of those days lingered, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The 7 Apache girls had faced fear, survived danger, and returned home, stronger, wiser, and full of hope for the future. Breaths. And in the hearts of all who knew the story, there was a quiet understanding. Even in the darkest moments, there is always the possibility of light. always the chance for kindness, and always the courage to survive.